Is it your dream to become a professional wrestling superstar, manager, or referee? Well, you can make that dream a reality by training with Midwest All-Pro Wrestling. Learn from former WWE superstar and NXT coach Eugene Nick Dinsmore. Classes are training right now, so go to MidwestAllPro.com and click on training to enroll today.
Barbecue for another exciting episode of the Kota iRadio Network's BTC UnCut. We have a very special guest today. We are going to talk to the OG of the MMA of the Midwest, South Dakota, the monster of the Midwest, Maru.
Oh, man, that energy you brought has got me going right now. DJ Barbecue, I'm telling you, that got me going. I'm excited.
How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. I'm having a great time putting that work in. But that was a great intro. Like, let's do this. Let's have some fun.
I'm on a high. I'm on a real big high. And the reason why I'm on a big high is because you kind of were involved in that. And we can go, like, straight to this. Friday night, the Sioux Falls Convention Center.
That was fun.
Supermania.
Yes.
Yeah. That was on another level, on a different chain.
It was
for sure.
Packed. It was a show. It was packed. People, I mean, it was so much fun. Billy Gunn, great time. Everybody was on point. Everybody did what they needed to do. The crowd was there. The important thing is the people wanted to be entertained, and they were a part of it, and that's what this is about. It really is about just the people being there with us while we tell our stories, and they were there every step of the way, and it was beautiful. I mean, you saw it with your own eyes.
You know, I always liked the coin the phrase. It was a heart attack of fun. Literally, it was an adrenaline shot rush of excitement on Friday night in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Not to plug the city, but
No, go ahead.
I'll do
go
my
ahead and
best.
plug it. Cheap plug. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and do it. No problem.
So there's a lot of individuals that don't know you, and then we also have this on YouTube. So for the viewers or the listeners on the podcast, why don't you give them a little bit of history? Spin that knowledge for them if you want to.
So there are people who know me. Then there's a lot of people who don't know me. I am Maru. I've been wrestling for 8 years. I have came from the MMA background. I did a lot for Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I did a lot for MMA in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that's where it started. I was a amateur wrestler from elementary school, middle school to high school. And from there, I switched into submission grappling, and then it just kind of just blew up from there. And then I would go to different martial arts gyms. No, I would literally go to different gyms, and I tried to go to Larry Hoover's gym. They weren't having it back in the day. But I would do the old school thing, like go to gyms and challenge people, because I learned very early on that grappling and wrestling with submissions was superior at the time. And so I really believed in it, and I took a lot of time studying it. I took a lot of time studying Ken Shamrock and the Lion's Den. I took a lot of time studying Eric Paulson. That is a name that only a few people will get, but Eric Paulson was a guy that I did a lot of studying on YouTube. You guys go back and look when he used to have long hair and he was fighting Val Trudeau. I watched a lot of Eric Paulson, and that is something that I immediately, from my amateur wrestling background, it just spoke to me, and I spent a long time just training, trying to get people in Sioux Falls to accept the fact that MMA is a legit sport. It's legit. It's not cockfighting. It's safer than boxing, boxing is dangerous as hell. You know, you're beating the hell out of each other with these gloves, causing brain damage. But in MMA, 1 or 2 hits, if you get knocked out, that's it. You're done. You don't get a 10 count to then get more brain damage. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was a lot safer, and I loved it, and it involved everything, and it was beautiful, and I fell in love with it, and I just followed it through. And some of the trainers, some of the biggest trainers today, the people that I was training, and it was a golden age. It was fun, and I absolutely loved it. It consumed my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd do it all over again. I really would, because in the end, it brought me to my true love, which was professional wrestling. That even though I had been watching wrestling my whole life, I didn't realize that the fighting in the garages, because that's what it used to be before cage or anything like that. You'd get in a garage and you'd fight people in these garages or in these other places. In the end, it was really all just training for me to be a professional wrestler.
So,
I had no clue.
To kind of help the listeners and the viewers for a timeline, when you were talking about with this MMA and the individuals that you were talking about training, was this pre the Dana White era? To where it was
this was
more like
pre Dana
mainstream?
White.
Okay, yeah.
This was before Dana White.
So this was the hardcore, like, old school UFC before it was
This
actually
was
mainstream.
This was old school UFC when John McCain was going around the country and telling everyone that it's human cockfighting and it should be illegal and it's wrong. And most of the country had it illegal. In fact, they even took it off pay-per-view.
Right.
Because it was so dangerous, but it wasn't dangerous.
It was something
nowhere
about how
near.
It was kind of like the old medieval times, when they were having battles like that, which was completely far from the truth.
It was not the truth at all. In fact, some of the first Olympics was back. They didn't call it that,
right?
But some of the first Olympics was mixed martial arts,
right?
And so, and I did a lot of study, and with me, my father got me into wrestling as a child, and from elementary, middle school, high school, and so I did amateur wrestling for most of my young life. And here's a funny thing about that: the reason why I got into amateur wrestling was because of Bob Backlund.
Oh, Mr. President Bob Backlund. The same
Bob,
one that Hall of Famer
Bob Backlund.
Bob Backlund.
I watched him as a little kid put the cross-faced chicken wing on someone and tap them out in seconds.
That was a classic.
And I said, "Oh my God, I want to learn that. I want to learn that."
So what was your go in depth about your reaction with this when you saw that cross-faced chicken wing?
I saw that cross-faced chicken wing and I went, "Wait. You can beat somebody without hitting them? Because you can grab a hold of a human being and make them give up?"
Right.
It blew my mind. I went, "Oh my God." And he was crazy. He would scream and he would just throw these guys all over the place, and he was the champion.
Right. I freaked
when
I saw it because I'd never seen you've seen the a different way to tap people out in professional wrestling, but this was on a whole different level. This is almost like he was actually hurting the individual.
Well, for me, it was the first submission I have actually ever seen. He was the first. A lot of people, their first was Hulk Hogan, or my first was Bob Backlund, and that just put an imprint on my life when I saw that intensity, his screaming, he just put it on. He threw dudes all over the place. He put the submission on, and it looked like he was ripping their head off, And for me, it spoke to me. It was like, I didn't know you could do that to a human being. I want to learn this. And so my dad, my father, was like, "Hey, well, then how about we get you in amateur? Why don't we get you in amateur wrestling?" And so, and this is funny. I went to I was elementary school. I went to the elementary school program, and I said, I want to learn the cross-faced chicken wing. And my coach laughed, and he said, yeah, that's not what this is.
Right.
I was like, what are you talking about? It's wrestling. I want to learn the cross-faced chicken wing. I literally learned wrestling because I wanted to become a professional wrestler.
Where was your first training? Where was your first mentor school that you went to when you wanted to do professional wrestling?
So my first mentor was, I just heard someone shout about football.
Yeah, that was we do this live on UnCut, and my son actually has a football game today. So sorry
okay.
about that. He was
No.
asking me a question, and I was trying to move the mic. As sometimes I don't quite move it because I'm too afraid that I'll break it off its stand. But sorry that I interrupt you. But this is the main of the basis of the show. Raw, real, uncut.
It's real. It's uncut.
Right.
Yeah. Let's
so
be
I
real
apologize, but yeah, I had to make sure because Dad time also has to come in with the radio host time too. So.
Nope, it's okay.
All right.
Also,
going.
I
Sorry,
need to know,
my bad.
real quick, the rating of the show. As we know, we live in a PG era of wrestling. I've been wrestling PG wrestling forever, so I just need to know like language.
Oh,
you
language.
Know what I mean?
You can it's not if it's not a consistent non-PC, that's fine. But you can go ahead and use whatever language
like
you
every
want.
once in a while, just kind of be real with my language.
Oh
correct?
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, no
all
problem.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I don't.
Is this where the professionals go like take two?
Yes, this is where it happens because you have to understand, like when I got into wrestling, it was very much PG. Dirty Dan Hansen, my first trainer, made it very clear to me that it's not the Attitude Era anymore. This was in 2010, and it was very much big on PC. But as you were saying, you asked me the first big influence.
Yeah, your trainer, the school that you went to before I had to use my loud dad voice and say football.
It would be Coach Bombas, and actually in Lincoln High School. And there's a lot of there are certain people. Once I share this on my page and other people see it, and the Lincoln High School people, they will know what I'm talking about when I say Coach Bombas, because
that's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correct?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, I used to cut promos. He was also my science teacher, and I used to cut promos on him in class, and I would be like, oh, I can beat you, you're nothing, you ain't this and you ain't that. And one day, I'm not kidding me, he said, you know what, and he was also in charge of in-school suspension, ISS. So one day I was talking all this mad crap, and he said, you know what, Isaac, you need to show up tonight. You need to show up to the rest. You be there tonight. We're going to have a match. If you don't show up, you're going to have an in-school suspension all day, right?
Oh,
and I was like,
I
was like, I ain't worried about you. I ain't worried about you. Because I had been wrestling for years by then. I was already varsity, okay? I had already beat the Foresters. There's people who in Sioux Falls, there's people in South Dakota who will know that name. Just trust me on that. And so I was like, I'm good. I'm not worried about you. Well, I forgot that he was also probably like 100 pounds heavier than me. And he literally wrapped me up into a little ball and spanked me. It was absolutely embarrassing. But he was a huge influence on me on how to get better, on how to focus and how to make sacrifices to get better, because he would not allow, if you lost, it came down to where was your training versus your opponent's training. You know what I mean? And he was really big on what are you willing to sacrifice to beat your opponent. And he'll hear this, he'll know. Justin Lund was without a shadow of doubt, he was my biggest obstacle in wrestling. Him and I had battles throughout the years in high school. We had battles. We were going back and forth. And my coach helped me really just focus and eventually be able to defeat him, but it took all year to beat that guy because Justin Lund was so good. He was just so good, and I had to dig down deep. I had to make sacrifices, and my father, you know, I thank my father a lot. He helped me with my diet. He helped me with cutting weight, and when it came time for that last battle, you know, for city going on to state, God, it was just amazing. I'm sorry, we're talking about amateur wrestling.
No, that's fine because that's the basis, that's the blueprint that built you up to this part with UFC. So I mean, that's just being real. You know, if I can, you know, be a parent and yell at my son to get going for football for his game tonight, you can definitely go in more in depth on what made Maru. We also will get to the point of what actually connects you to the upper epsilon of professional wrestling here in just a little bit.
Oh yes, most definitely.
So with your training, your schools, where did that take you from there to other promotions? Like, give us a little bit of a visual by verbiage of where you started going and what territories that you can, I guess you can say territories in the Midwest, you know, in the East, the South, or the West. Where did you go from here?
So what we'll do is we'll skip the entire MMA journey.
We could do that for another show.
Yep, that's it. We'll skip all that and we'll go straight into professional wrestling.
Okay.
When I was done training, when I was done fighting in garages for no money because it was illegal, when I was done with all that, one day, my friend, my baby mom actually, was like, well, why don't you get into professional wrestling? She's like, well, Isaac, you've been watching it. I've been watching it with my brother who just recently passed. It's like, you've been watching it since you were a kid, and that's all you do is talk about it. You don't miss it. You get all the pay-per-views. Why don't you get into professional wrestling? I had never considered that. Never thought to actually get into it.
You never actually thought about actually doing any of that at all?
No, because I was so into MMA. I was so into you guys, you can look it up. I was so into grappling tournaments, judo, and I was so into battle that I just never considered actually getting into professional wrestling, even though I watched and never missed it. I never missed it. I loved it.
So were you a WCW or were you a WWF, WWE guy?
Ooh, you asked the great question. There's a lot of people out there that are really iffy on that. I'm going to tell you right now, I was a WCW guy.
Where the big boys play.
That is where it was at. You know why? One, WCW had better production. WWF at the time did not have the same production. It was not the same. When you went to WCW, it looked better. It literally looked better. The sound was better. Things were better. When you went to WWF, it didn't look as good. It didn't sound as good.
Because they didn't have the investors at the time. That was
didn't.
A whole different view, a whole different vision look. So that's the reason why a lot of people go with WCW, because that was actually a television production company.
Yes, it was a true production. And so it was confusing for me because I first grew up on WWF. Yes, I'm saying F, people. I know it's WWE, but we're talking about back in the day, okay?
Right. History lesson right here.
Yes. WWF is what I grew up on, but then when Hogan switched over in Mall of America, when he switched over to WCW, and I saw how good it looked and how professional it looked, I thought, well, this is the new big time. This is it.
Right.
Like, this is the new thing because it looked so good. And I think a lot of people like to talk about the NWO and all that stuff. I haven't heard one person in the years talk about the production and how well they did with the pyro and the ring and the camera. It was on point. And WWF at the time was behind. WCW just looked way more professional, and that's what I went with. the professional looking brand.
So what you said, Hulk Hogan, but what actual athlete on that show on the roster that you actually kind of are similar to what you do with your character in professional wrestling?
With me, I was really into like Dean Malenko. I'm sure that's no surprise if you guys have seen my style.
That makes sense with your submission holds.
Yeah, Dean Malenko. I mean, we're going, okay, we can go Dean Malenko, the Steiner brothers. Absolutely loved the belly to bellies and just
Amateur
I loved
wrestling connection. I see that.
the amateur wrestling. I love on the mat work, and when you guys see my work, you see that I'm on the mat. I'm not running the ropes. I'm not jumping off. I almost cussed. I'm not jumping off things. I keep it in the ring. I keep it in the middle of the ring, and we're going to work technique. We're going to work those. We are going to work in the middle of the ring, and we're going to get work done there. And that, William Regal, I really loved watching William Regal. Back in the day, when I did a lot of studying, I loved watching Billy Robinson. Those guys there, I just loved the old school. I loved watching, was it Inaoki versus Hulk Hogan? When people that think that Hulk Hogan can't wrestle, I laugh at them and tell them to watch him in Japan. He knows how to wrestle. He knows his submissions. He's a great wrestler. It's just that you don't need to do all that in America.
No,
I love the realistic, old carny, British style of the way it used to be. The catch wrestling first. That's what it used to be before it became, what it is today. I loved that. And I just stuck to it. It's beautiful, I loved it.
Right. And speaking of other things that we love, we'd have to actually take a little bit of break to recognize the sponsors. We got Midwest All Pro Wrestling. If you go to MidwestAllProWrestling.com, you can get tickets and also feel the excitement. It's a great show, great production, great promotion to go see. So go ahead and get online there and go to MidwestAllPro.com. Jekyll and Hyde barbecue that will just make you want to, eat some more. You got Remedy Brewing Company out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's the remedy that ails you. And then White Claw, because there ain't no laws when you're drinking the claws. So,
wait, hold up. Did you just promote White Claw with me on the show?
Yes, I had to. They gave me a tweet back.
Do your job, fine. I'll be quiet.
You know what? Actually, I waited to say that until a certain point of the show because I know that I think I've heard you express your.
You knew I was gonna say something.
Yes, I knew it, and that's the reason why I do my I do my history, and we'll get a little bit about the kind of history reaction of your character and me a little bit here soon. But yeah, no, I waited for it. I waited for it. I guess you could say I kind of ribbed you a little bit there, but yeah, I knew it.
You got me. That was good because when you said that, everything within me went, wait, hold up now. Hold up now.
And that's why I waited until the end to say that out of everything, because I actually had the White Claw at number 2 on the sponsors to read, and I'm like, you know what? Wait, I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to put that on the bottom.
You got me. Right? Look, good job. You do your study. You do your work. I'm impressed with you on that one. You got me. You got me.
Real big side note. I like it. I don't like all the, I drink whiskey. I drink beer.
I'm sorry, what? You like what?
I like whiskey. I drink beer.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you like White Claw for a second there.
Right. I do like White Claw.
I'm sorry, what?
White Claw?
I don't speak Spanish.
Okay. Si, senor, White Claw y.
I don't
no
listen to
la a drinking de claw.
All right, you know what? To each their own, sir.
Right. The debate is real. This is like a old school WCW, WWF, WWE Monday Night War. We'll call it the White Claw War.
Oh God. You know what? I'm not going to go there. Let's stay on track.
All right. Let's go back to our regular scheduled programming. So you said that you did all this professional wrestling, which you never even thought you were going to go in professional wrestling.
Very
so
true.
now let's go fast forward to like the here and now, to where
Okay.
we first met. You were doing a show in Sioux Falls, South Dakota with Midwest All Pro Wrestling. You were going against Dags from the Sodak.
Did you just bring him up?
I just did say that.
Did you just bring up Dags?
Yes, I did bring up Dags.
Oh,
This
okay.
might light up a fire. I know. This is kind of a little bit more than the White Claw, but yes, I did bring up Dags.
Okay, all right, okay, okay.
Now let's
do
set
this.
the stage
let's
here
do
a little
this.
bit.
Okay.
Okay, so it was you and Dags in the middle of the ring at Big's Bar in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It was a hardcore match, and I think, if I remember right, I was sitting ringside, and I'll let you take it from there, but then we'll get to how we actually first met. So go ahead, take it away.
Well, it's as simple as this. At that time, what really bothered me was that I had been a figure in Sioux Falls for a really long time, especially my family, the Duncan family. In fact, they didn't even introduce me as Maru on that first show. They introduced me as Isaac Duncan. And if you go back and watch the match between Devin Thomas and I, you'll see it. And it just, overall, what bothered me was that when Dags and I wrestled, it was like they were cheering more for Dags than Maru.
I got his autograph.
And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hear all that. Anyway, and it's like, what? My family has done a lot. It's like, and they were just, it was a little bit tipped more towards Dags, and man, I just wasn't cool with that. And we had a really good, honorable, respectful first match. And I made a small mistake. He sidewalk slammed me, and he got the pin in, which really was surprising because he was new. He was a rookie. How does a rookie beat a veteran? You know what I mean? That made me angry.
I might
so
dig
I
myself
decided
a bigger hole than I already have with the White Claw than mentioning Dags. I'll just let you keep going from there because I won't explain.
Yeah, okay. All right. The point is I made a small mistake, lost, and at that point in time, I felt it was important to he was new. He's young. He was new. He was young. He needed to understand at that point in time what his place was, and I had to show him that. You may have had that one win. You may have gotten that, but you didn't. You got lucky. And I just decided to impose my will on him at that point in time, and Sioux Falls decided to turn against me for standing up for what I thought was right. They turned on me.
Yeah, they had a lot of fans, but you did have some of your fans there cheering you on.
They booed pretty fast.
Okay, well then I misunderstood what the actual
match.
cheering was. I guess it was okay. I once again I'm ribbing you a little bit. I apologize because I'm trying to build up to the point to where how angry you were with one of the comments that I kind of stated during that hardcore match. So take us a little bit into when the bell rang and what was your blueprint plan of beating Dags in this hardcore match?
Beat the hell out of him, to make an example out of him, to show those people what a true professional wrestler was. And that's what I was at that time, and I still am now, but at that time, he was a rookie. I was not. And I was going to show there is a difference between the two, and the people needed to respect that. So my intentions were to do as much damage as I possibly could without getting in trouble and going to jail, without pissing off, as we know, Eugene. I had no mercy. There was no mercy that day. That was a fight.
Yes,
that was a fight at Biggs.
I wouldn't even call it a fight. It was more of a brawl. I mean, it escalated. It definitely escalated at the point to where I'm sitting ringside, and you had no idea who I was, and I didn't. I kind of knew who you were just by knowing and seeing what the card was, and then doing research. there was a comparison to a certain NFL linebacker at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a comment, and it was, it was a shot just because, I was cheering on Dags from the Sodak.
Is this when I got in your face?
Yes. You turned around and you got in my face, and it was pretty funny because the lady next to me goes, "I think he's really mad at you," and I'm like, "You think?" But no,
I remember that.
Yeah. I laugh because I'm on the other side of the aisle, so and on the internet, so I can. So I'm pretty much safe. The next time I go to a Midwest All Pro event, I might not be safe too much. But
Maybe
anyway.
not. But you know what sucked about that is what was stupid is when I turned to yell at you, I just got distracted. And if you remember right, he grabbed me by my throat and sent me through that table.
Yes, he
and
did.
That hurt
And
so bad.
I think that's at the point to where you could basically blame me for how it escalated a little bit, because you guys were really throwing haymakers after that. And I'm not taking the credit, but that's exactly what it was. You guys were actually it was okay.
It was a
gloves
fight.
off. Yeah, it was a fight.
It turned into a fight.
Yes.
That's what happened. It turned into a fight because it was like, no, this is my hometown. And he's like, no, this is my hometown. He's like, this is my people. I said, no, these are my people. And I heard what you said. I went, guys, I hope they can find that video and put it out. But I went to you to make it very clear, no, these are my people.
Right.
And sure enough, as I turned around, he grabs me by my throat and sends me through that table, and that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt.
What is some of the, I don't know, examples of, other than the fact that you go through a table and obviously it's going to hurt, but like for people that go out there that are kind of like the ones that, think that they know it all, these aren't, manufactured to the break. These are real tables.
It was a real table, and that was real cement, and we got lost, and I don't know, it just got personal, and I guess it kind of got personal when I beat on him the show before that. But when I went through that table and hit the cement, I was in pain.
Yeah, because we were in a parking lot is where the show was.
We were in a parking
viewers
lot.
And the listeners an idea of this is hardcore cement, asphalt, no give, no mats.
There was no mats.
Brawl.
There was no nothing.
Straight out street fight.
It was straight through into the cement, and it hurt, and I was mad. I got distracted a little bit your fault.
But I do have to say, though, even though that it was more one-sided, everybody unanimously stood up and gave them a standing ovation after the match. And
they did.
It was definitely a great match. You took it from pillar to post, from the street to the pavement to the inside of the bar. I think I remember
we
right.
went in the bar fight. We fought everywhere. I actually cracked a rib and couldn't wrestle for a couple months after that. Because if you remember, he hit me with a spear.
Oh yeah.
That hurt so bad. And I'm being real right now.
He
hit me.
Did you guys have kendo sticks, or was it another stick? Because I know that you guys
kendo
were back
stick.
and forth.
It was
with
kendo
each
stick.
other.
He got a kendo stick and beat the hell out of me with a kendo stick, and it hurt a lot. It was personal, this is Sioux Falls. It's my place, and he thought it was his place, and it's mine. Like, the Sioux Falls is mine, and right now it's different. Now, right now I'm working with the Ninja, and we're having a good time back. And I've worked back in good graces with Sioux Falls, but at that time, it bothered me because to me, that wasn't his place. That was my place.
Right.
And he was getting in the way of that. And so we needed a battle. And for you who were there and the people that were there, it got real. It was a battle. It was a fight.
Right. Speaking of being real and also talking about Sioux Falls, South Dakota, let's fast forward to this because I talked about this earlier in the show, this connection, especially with a connection that's coming up on Wednesday night. Some people have kind of dubbed the Wednesday Night Wars. With all due respect to you, because I know this, that you are really close friends. You grew up, you're like brother and sister
Yep.
to the NXT Women's Champion, Shayna Baszler.
That's my sister from another mister.
Right, and we had Shayna's dad on the show last week.
Wait, I'm gonna cut you off right now. Let me tell you something about Skip. I'm trying to be good here, but him and I have a boot dumpster match that him and I have supposed to have done. Like he's known me since I was a kid, okay?
Right.
And and those graham crackers that I went in his house and I ate.
May or may not have given you the nickname Graham Cracker.
What you don't know is I ate way more than that in his house, because when Shayna and I would train, we'd go back to her place and I would just eat up the food, and Shayna would be like, Isaac, that's my dad's food, and I'd be like, okay. I'd eat it anyway, and I didn't care, and and Skip, he made it clear he wasn't too happy about that, and him and I. He's been challenging me to a dumpster boot match, which he's been ducking for I don't know how many years. I have made it clear I will do that match with him. And you know what? He's never showed up. Like, literally, to this day, he always finds a way out of it. And that's all I'm just going to say. I mean, that guy is 3 times my size. Like, why not? Like, why run away from it?
I think we might have connections to where we can kind of book that.
Well, you don't want to
call his people to
look,
get that people together.
Skip is my other dad. Like Shayna and I, high school. You can see pictures of us in high school together and doing plays together and stuff. And it'd be hard for me to beat up another father figure in my life. I mean, I would do it if I needed to, but I mean, you don't beat up a father figure. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's just one of those things to where Skip and I, we have a love-hate relationship. He was not okay with a lot of the fighting in the beginning with Shayna. He made it very clear how he felt about it, and I just continued to train her, and we did our thing.
So let take us back to when you both were starting to train a little bit here, because a lot, like I said, there's a lot of them that will listen to this that'll know the backstory, and some of them that won't, because it's never been told outside of, like, I guess if you want to use an example as a regional area. So give us a little history lesson on this.
Well, okay, so the history lesson on that is I'm not a big name, so. I'm, when it comes to the big times, you want to use the big names. You want to use the Josh Barnetts. You know what I mean? You want to use the big names out there.
You're just being true on that. I mean, it's
I'm being real right now.
Right.
You don't want to say, oh, my training was from, Isaac Duncan. I'm just going to break kayfabe here. You know what I mean? It's something you don't want to say, but if you go back and you look at those tapes and all those earlier fights, that is like. She always had a natural wrestling ability, but there was no submissions, and that wasn't there. And we had known each other since kids, and obviously, and listen, when her and I talked, we only talked about pro wrestling, because that's what Shayna was about, pro wrestling. Her and I were about pro wrestling. That's what we talked about, And even though I was in MMA and doing that and training in that, we actually didn't talk about that. It was always about pro wrestling. And it wasn't until I saw a couple of things about her and I said, I think you'd be good at fighting, and I started, I like right away, I taught her the guard. And I'm telling you, that day, the day I taught her the guard, she submitted a man that was much bigger than her by just using basics, and it was absolutely amazing. And from that day on, I knew that there was something special there. So I made sacrifices and devoted on, we were, just basically brother and sister at one point in time. But when that happened, I poured all of my knowledge into her. So when you see the submissions today, her base is because she didn't know the submissions. I taught her all, like literally all those submissions, and we literally would train. We didn't have days off. That's just not how it worked.
Right.
And Skip said that Omaha trained her. That's not actually what happened. It was me training her because Omaha was a guy that with Omaha and I brought some of the first fights in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, I was just going to cut in, if you don't mind, to say that.
Go ahead.
My introduction to you wasn't just was the the hype, because that's how I feel about you, but people, some of them that are going to listen to this, don't understand. In South Dakota, and some people do understand this, but in South Dakota, we don't get a lot of the privileges of sports, popular sports, like other states do. I mean, even if we're this close to Minnesota or Iowa or Nebraska, North Dakota will get these sports before we do, but we didn't get the MMA. Even when it was at its popularity of the Dana White days, or even after the Dana White days, it took a lot for that stuff, even professional wrestling, to get here. So yes, Maru and other individuals were the originators of having
and
them come here.
And actually, I'm going to break kayfabe and be real with you. This is what it was. It was me, Isaac, Bill Christiansen, and a very early, big, overweight Bruce Hoyer, who we now know is one of the best grapplers on planet Earth, one who runs a great gym, is a very dangerous individual, and now has helped create many great fighters. And the Next Edge Academy, that man has just taken Next Edge Academy to do the next level. And back in the day, he was this big, overweight dude that just fell in love with grappling, but didn't have any natural ability. He's a perfect example of what happens when you take someone like me with natural ability and someone like him with no natural ability, but someone like him who studies and devotes his life to an art can surpass someone like me with natural ability that didn't commit every day to it. That he's now my coach. He's now my teacher. The tables turned when it came down to it. So
Right.
Bruce Hoyer, without a shadow of a doubt, deserves a lot of respect, because that man fought through a lot of frustration. He used to get, oh my God, he used to get so pissed off when we would roll, and he would get submitted and he'd want to grapple again. He'd get submitted again, and he'll laugh, because he would then go on a rampage at Self-Defense America and destroy everything in Self-Defense America because he wasn't happy with his performance.
Right. But like that was all the tools and the stuff that you guys needed to bring all that stuff here, to like that hard work that you did. It eventually paid off for our state.
Yes.
It also paid
Yes.
off for
Yes.
Shayna and everybody that's came from that time, because like I said, when I said the OG of the MMA in this area, that's the truth, because
It is. Yeah.
we never had that. And then you had a lot of people advocating for like, oh, how, it's this and this. That wasn't true, to not have it here, but which is great. And, everybody that does know the story of how it originally came here in that Sioux Falls area, we respect that and we love it. So with Shayna, and people don't get to see this or hear this as wrestling fans, MMA fans, and that, I hear it. I don't brag about it because that's not my place. If, like I've always said, if anybody wants to hear the stories, you got to go to the sources and ask them. And if they want to say it, then, that's up to them. But with Shayna, going through MMA and then going through this, give your side of reaction of how it felt, because you guys are family. Whether it's not by blood at all, but you guys are family. You guys grew up each other. You're like you said, you're the brother
Literally
from another mister.
My sister from another mister.
Right.
I look at Skip as another father in my life. The thing with, and I have to say this real quick, is I didn't just go over there and no, like Skip would, and Skip's gonna laugh at this. Skip would play Oblivion. Skip was a gamer. He is a gamer, and him and we would. I would play. You remember when Oblivion came out?
Yeah.
On the Xbox, he would play Oblivion, and he also would play. I think it was. He would play Diablo 2 as well too. Him and Shayna. Oh my God, they were Diablo 2 fanatics. And he was also and he's gonna laugh at this when he hears this. And when I would go over there, he would just show me, hey Isaac, look at this new house I got, right? And he'd show me the house, but I'd see a whole bunch of dead bodies in the basement. I'm like, Skip, did you buy this house? Or he'd be like, no, I killed the owner. It's my house now. So he would go around in Oblivion and kill the owners and own all these houses and keep the bodies in the basement. That's how gangster Skip was.
Right. That's awesome. And, like people have already seen the episode last week, but yeah, Skip is quite a character. He's a great individual. He has a dry sense of humor, and it's awesome. He's part of that front row crew, as you know,
yes.
You performing, as you know, are pretty entertaining in themselves. So I want to know, because I've never asked you this, and I don't know if you mind, and if you do, you can say that you don't want to answer it. What was your reaction when you first saw Shayna debut on NXT? Because I can tell you what my son did. My son was ecstatic. He went nuts because of the fact that he respects the fact that she kept the Sioux Falls, South Dakota line in the beginning when she's and that was through the Mae Young Classic, and my son loves it every single time. I told her dad this too.
The thing about that is Shayna never ever wanted to not. Shayna always wanted to respect her hometown. Her hometown is Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that is something she's proud of, and that is something that especially when Dinsmore started doing shows in Sioux Falls, she really wanted to help support that. She loves this. She whenever she can, she comes back here, and this is her home. This is her hometown. And she wants people to know, like, it's famous, like, it's popular to be, from, let's say you're from Webster or something like that.
Right.
But then let's say you went to Minnesota. It's popular, from this Minnesota or from here or from there. A nice big name, a town that everyone knows. No one knows Sioux Falls.
Right.
Shayna didn't care about that. Sioux Falls was her hometown, and she was going to give that honor, and she will continue to give that honor until the very end, because Sioux Falls, for her, for us, for a lot of people, it started right there in Sioux Falls. That is the genesis for a lot of people. For Ben Nguyen, he is on a tear in the UFC right now. It goes for multiple people. Sioux Falls was truly a place that cultivated a lot of fighters, and it was just we as a state, we grew, and it was beautiful. Like it was a grassroots project to get MMA to be here, and it took a lot of work. It really did. It was really difficult.
It was just like kind of the concept that when a classmate of mine, or my actual graduating classmate's brother, ended up going to K-State for football, got a lot of awards and stuff within there, and then he got drafted to the San Diego Chargers, and they went to the Vikings, and then had 1 year with the St. Louis Rams before they moved. But hearing that was awesome. That's where my son was ecstatic there. But then when to see a professional wrestler go on that big of a level mainstream and state that they are from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and then
that's who she is.
Yeah, and then that's when the kids are like, "Oh my God, you can actually make it from here." And that's where I get not just as a father, but as an adult, the respect factor, because it's inspirational to all these kids. It gives them hope, because a lot of times you don't hear about that. There's plenty of superstars.
Yes.
all over.
Whatever her name is, I forgot her name, but whatever her name is, she was in X-Men. She's from here. Whatever. I have a hard time with her name. She's from here. There's a lot of people that are actually.
Oh, I know
from,
who you're talking about. I know her by her real name.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna. Like I said, I don't have permission from her to say that. But
Yeah.
she's been on a lot of movies. She's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She was on Jimmy Fallon, which they got slack for stating that she was from Sioux Falls, North Dakota, which that wasn't true. But then they corrected themselves. But I know who you're called. January Jones is what she goes by.
January Jones. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. From here.
Yep.
But that's not. See, here's the thing about Shane. Her song, her entrance music, the way loyalty. That's real, and
right.
She's gonna be loyal to Sioux Falls until the very end, because that's what she is about, loyalty, and she rewards those that are loyalty to her, and she punishes those that are not loyal to her.
Right.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right. So you saw her debut. So since then, since her debut, what has been your reaction of seeing her? Because I mean, not everybody gets this opportunity. Like it was a mind-blowing thing for me to see a gentleman that I went to school with in high school with, that I was a manager as a freshman for the football team for the high school. But it's to give that perspective of how it is to see that person that you grew up with being on that big stage.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. Now, can we be real here?
Yeah, that's the premise of the show, is being raw, real, and uncut.
It's a double-edged sword, because at the same time, and now we're about to get real here right now, okay? I'm not trying to be heel. I'm just being real.
Oh no, yeah.
I was so proud. It makes me so proud, but at the same time, it's like, so and so, this and this, Josh Burnett, this and this, Josh Burnett, that and that, and it's like, no, but you know what? I'll go along with it, and I've gone along with it for years. I haven't said anything for years. I have been quiet and stayed in the background. I have been silent out of respect, and I've just been silent and quiet about it. And when people talk about it, and when you hear the stories, you're going to hear, her father, which her father definitely played a big role, and you're going to hear Josh Barnett. You're going to hear all these names, but you're not really going to hear the full truth. You're not going to hear that. You're not going to know that. You're not going to know that a no-namer took her from being a softball player and turned her into a submission genius. Absolutely, I poured everything into her because I recognized greatness when I saw. I recognized greatness, and I poured everything into that, and it actually turned into a problem in certain parts of my life. But I knew what I saw, and I made a lot of sacrifices, and it was her and me for years. It was just, you ask anyone, and that's just the way it was. And Skip mentioned it with her and me, but it was like that for years.
Right.
Just training. We had no days off. It was work. We worked hard. It was just battles and training. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of knowledge from what I know poured into her, and it went from us being kids to me being a coach to it was a lot of fun, and to this day, nothing's going to break our bond.
Let me drop a little knowledge for the viewers and listeners here when it comes to this situation. Now, you're right. It is a double-edged sword. Not a lot of individuals are going to know the reason why that some of the things that they do. And we've had this conversation before. The reason for it, and I know somebody like Mitchell Olsen that was on Survivor and a lot of other CBS shows and
I actually talked with him in the mall once. I know what you're talking about.
He tells you, because I asked this question before, I go, now, are a lot of these backstories that they say about certain individuals, actually is it like when they say based on a true movie, because it's always an exaggeration of what the actual truth is for the movie to make it appeal to a mass. Now, this isn't a discredit to you or discredit to anybody in the past. That's even with January Jones and also Ben Lieber and so on and so on. It's not just in Hollywood, but when you take an individual that you're going to do a backstory on, you find out over the years of doing these shows, these productions, like with WWE, for example, or WCW, or any major one that's on TV, they nitpick the popular names that are more well known. Now, is that right? No, I don't think it is. But at the same time, now
it's good for
them.
Business. It's good for business.
Yep, and that's not to be a pun to what they always say on the show of Raw and SmackDown, but it's the truth, and it's unfortunate. But Barnett's name is well known out there. Now, if you would have gotten your name repeatedly out there as much as possible, and allowed that, then it'd have been a different story. But
it would have been a whole different story.
Right.
Because I battle, and I'm going to be honest with you, I battle from panic attacks and anxiety. I have a panic anxiety. I have and mental illness is a huge thing I fight for, and something I really believe in, and something that I'm open about.
Right.
And and one of the things I battled with was like travel anxiety. So when Shayna had a fight in Japan against Roxanne Modafferi, I couldn't go because the panic of being on a plane that long. You know what I mean?
Well,
Things
I'm there,
like that.
Right there with you. I've never flown, but I've gotten the
so
opportunity.
It was one of those. It was just one of those things to where it was like, when I had my chances, with the Bison and all those, those guys with Kelly Cobold and all that.
Right.
Little known fact. Shayna actually had that fight won. It was just the round went out. She grabbed Kelly Cobold. She got Kelly Cobold in an armbar, and there was no way out. And the bell actually saved Kelly Cobold. And we all agree, Shayna and I both, she'll tell you, that was actually the best thing to happen in her career, that Kelly Cobold didn't tap out, because it turned her into a monster. But in saying that, if that video gets out, you're going to see that's me and her coaching her in there. They know that's what that career was. So when Skip said, the friends there and that, no, it wasn't the friends. It was me. I can tell you her very first fight was, we trained for a long time for that. There was nowhere else to train. It was just us two. And she wanted to fight this one female fighter who was a boxer really bad. That person wouldn't fight Shayna, but someone else stood up to fight Shayna. And they just threw a bunch of money in the ring. And Shayna went in there and beat this girl. And I wish the tapes are still there. It's on tapes. Think how old that is, on VHS
now
tapes.
You just dated both of us.
I did. It's there. And you see us there. And she went in there and just followed the game plan. Take her down, submit her. Shayna did it like that. And she was one of the first. There were no main events other than Shayna in Sioux Falls. She was the main event. That's just the way it was. And
she was very feared in this area for a long time.
She was very feared. And it was because she had a very natural. Now, that is the one thing that is true. She had a very natural wrestling background. It just wasn't refined.
Right.
I had been wrestling since forever. And so we took that, we worked on that, and then we started adding submissions into that. Very catch wrestling-ish, leg locks. But see, the thing with Shayna is she's actually a magician. She really is an actual magician, which is something that she doesn't really show that off too much. She follows the rules of the magician. She takes it actually very serious, which people don't know. And when it comes to, I would show her something, and then with her mind and the way she works, she goes, well, what if we did it this way? And I'm like, that's actually fucking amazing. No, you're right. Oh, I apologize about that cuss word.
That's all right. The swear jar is available.
Okay, bleep that out. I apologize about that. No, but it was it was amazing, and she was a natural, and I knew that, and it was like we're gonna we are going to cultivate this. We're going to put time in this, and that's what happened. And it was a lot of fun. And I haven't said anything over all these years because one of the worst things to do is when someone makes it and then all of a sudden you want to speak out like you're a somebody.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, well, no one knows. Who the hell are you? Like, what are you talking about? You know, so that's why literally for all these years, I've been silent. I've been quiet. I have been the silent friend behind the scenes, helping with a lot of stuff and just chilling silent behind the scenes. But I do think there are some things that need to be clarified at this point in time.
Right. I do think that you did it at the right time. I know, like anybody else, you know, they're not going to know that watches this or listens to this. There's some that will, but yeah, this is completely the way it is. This is the real story, and you guys are literally like family. You are brother and sister
Yes.
when it comes to this. So,
Yes.
we're getting here to the end of the time, but I do want to get to the end to give people an opportunity on, you know, letting people know on where they can find you, you know, your social media accounts if you'd like to do that, and then what you have coming up.
It's funny you say that because being what sucks here's a double-edged sword with that. What sucks is when people find that out and they pay attention and they study it and they look online. You're like, was that you with Rhonda? Like, oh shit, you know, they look at that whole thing. When people figure it out, it turns into all about Shayna. You know what I mean?
Right.
It turns into that. And it's like, well, you know, I mean, that's my career. that's what I do, you know.
Right.
And I try, like, there's a lot of times when I hear people just talking about it and I don't say anything. I like to just listen to what they say because
Right.
they don't know what they're talking about. And I know what's going on. And that is the one thing I will say that's a lot of fun. Is sitting back, not saying anything, and just listening to people talk about what they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
That is fun. That is fun.
I see that a lot when I see people like on different social media groups or even being at the event. Like Skip even said this. It's funny to just listen to people talk because we know that it's wrong, and sometimes it's just better not to react.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, for an example, like he said, the one individual that realized, and they're not really his uncles, but you know, they're just like, you know, they're just like uncles to her.
Mm-hmm.
He shut up right away.
Yeah.
He got three big individuals like, yeah, probably not a good idea that you probably say anything anymore. And then he's just, you know, kind of chokes on his own, like, you know, spit and goes, yep, I'm done. I'm not gonna say anything.
Yep. And another thing that I actually have to mention, I'm sorry if this is going over.
Oh, no,
I apologize.
that's fine. No, this is the premise of the show.
Here's one thing that's so real is like them taking their name out. I'm actually harder to find because I'm not talked about. You would have no clue. It's, you know, you would think Josh Barnett and her dad. That's what you would think.
Right.
But for the people that actually do know the actual story of how it really went down, I get flooded with shit.
Oh, I can only imagine how much you get flooded with.
When she went to the Ultimate Fighter, it was ridiculous. It was like, and me, I'm like, we have a rule actually. We have a rule, no spoilers. And so it makes it difficult sometimes for us to talk because I'm going to stay a fan, and that's the way I want to be. I'm a fan, and so. And she's expressed the annoyance of that. But there are some conversations I just will not have with her because I would like to be surprised because I am a fan.
Right.
I'm a wrestling fan, so I don't want to know. So we have difficult conversations where she'll be like, well, you know what's not fine. And, you know, and it's just a line I won't cross. And there's people that will ask questions, and I'll flat out just say I have no clue. I don't know what you're.
Let's go with that because I asked Skip this too, and this is only the right thing to do because like you guys, you know, obviously all grew up. How do you deal with that? Because I can only imagine, like, you know, they take precautions of, you know, trying to, you know, hide the number, you know, do all that. how do you handle when people know that come up? Because like we said earlier in the show, we don't get this in South Dakota as much. I mean, there's these certain individuals, but now lately, people are getting recognized for their athletic, skills and stuff, and so they make it to the big leagues. How do you handle this when it comes to the other side of the spectrum?
Okay, so for me on my side, in order for someone to figure it out, they've got to follow and pay attention very closely. And they've got to look at the pictures. They've got to pay attention. And if they pay attention, for example, Shayna did a thing for, I think it was Punch Drunk Gaming or something like that. And there was a picture of her wrapping me with the controller around my neck for gaming. Yeah. And when you go down, and there are people who have actually figured that out, and they'll send me messages going, "Oh, hey, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I've got to play. I play dumb. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I actually, I use it to my advantage. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Josh is your trainer. I often deflect and often just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, after this interview, it's going to be harder to do that.
Right.
But I do a lot of deflection, and I do a lot of, as you see with like my wrestling, I don't do a lot of crossover. I don't do a lot of, I do my wrestling. It's what I do. I do my comedy. I'm going to stand-up comedy. It's my separate thing. It's what I do. That's me. That has nothing to do with her. And sometimes when people figure it out, and I have, especially when she was in The Ultimate Fighter, that was crazy. I don't know how people figured it out. But when she was in The Ultimate Fighter, I was getting people that were wanting like people were, I'm from this magazine or I'm from that, and can you tell me this or that? And I'm like, I don't know what?
Right.
What are you talking about? I don't, who? And there's a lot of deflection and just denial. It's kind of the way it goes down. I don't know what you're talking about.
I actually know what you're talking about, because I'm not one to be like, hey, I'm friends with Eugene, or I'm friends with so and so. And the only reason why I said his name is only because, for an example, when I do go and email or message, or even sometimes, I'll call them because I have their number, ask them if they want to do an interview, I have to mention that name, because sometimes they think I'm some type of, idiot out there that's, kind of trying to get the dirt, and that are the overzealous smarks that I like to call
the
them.
Smarks. Oh God, I hate Smarks.
Right. And so, like, that's the only reason why I'd ever, bring up his name or somebody else's, just so they know that, hey, yeah, this is for real. I'm doing this not for the money. I'm doing this because I believe truly that, these voices and these stories need to be heard that you don't see anywhere else. I mean, there's other podcasts that are out there. I don't really like saying podcast, because that's just kind of being, not original. I know it's another term for radio cast, but, there's just a lot of them that don't interview the actual fans or interview the actual behind the scenes individuals, or have that option because it's not the cool thing to do. So,
yeah.
But I respect everybody that's in the podcast game, because, hey, you do you. And we all should work together on that and respect that. But that brings up another question on it. What do you do when you kind of get asked for the spoilers? Because I mean, I know, anybody that really knows you and knows the family, like, you guys talk all the time.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because quite frankly, if I got asked that, like I did for my friend that played football, and I never thought I'd get asked that, and I said this to Skip, I said it was absolutely annoying, but someone goes, well, you know him, because there was a conversation got brought up that he was from, and I went to high school, someone else brought it up, and then this dad's like, hey, can you get us tickets or an autograph? And I'm like, no.
Oh, you have no idea.
Right, I've never asked for
to do
giving
that.
my son an
my
autograph,
gosh.
and my son's a huge fan of him. So how do you handle that?
So what's really sad is actually it's a lot of wrestlers and workers that do that. And how I handle it is a lot, like I said, deflection and acting stupid. Um, I'm like, what are you talking about? And like that's how the deflection is the best way I handle it. And just by simply going, I don't know what you're talking about. Or no, yeah, no, we don't talk like that. That's like my biggest thing is creating as much space between us as possible. You know, and but what makes that really hard is that are the people that do the study and they put it together. Those people are the hardest to deal with because they get it. They're on the inside and they're like, oh, they're dropping these names, but you know what I mean? And so they try to butter me up with, yeah, but actually here's the thing, and we figured this out through this, and that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like that. We don't really, it's just not, we don't talk. And here's the absolute truth. We just don't talk about stuff like that with story and that because we just don't do spoilers. It's just not the way we work.
Right.
And another thing is, you have to understand, we grew up together, meaning we talk about life,
Yeah, you guys actually have a life. You guys actually
we have a life.
A real life, living.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not, oh, we're on camera 24/7. No, you guys actually have a life.
Yeah, there's a life out there besides, MMA and wrestling.
Right.
There's everyday things.
Is this a spoiler or is this a breaking news story?
Yeah, this is just life,
right?
And so it's like no, it's just, most of our conversations are literally like how we were when we were kids. You can, if you look, you'll find a picture of us in high school together where she was really fat and I was really skinny. She'll laugh at that. And
old graham cracker is what I like to call it.
Yep, and old graham crackers. Yep, and
he'll fight me later on. He'll get me back.
And it's one of those things where I just simply deflect. I act stupid, and it works because it gets it away. But here's the double-edged sword in that is that the truth of the matter is Maru, my character, will never be a character by itself for some people because of people who figure out the connection. It'll be Maru Shayna, you know what I mean? It'll be, the Queen of Spades, this, and that. And I've come to accept that, just like Shayna, I know, has come to accept the fact that it's very difficult for her to have a conversation without somebody bringing up Ronda Rousey, even though Shayna was the pioneer. Shayna was one of the ones that helped pave the way for someone like Ronda Rousey to come forward. And she'll always say Ronda Rousey was actually the perfect person to bring the attention to women's MMA, even though they had already been vets before her, and she'll tell you that as well too. But it happens to her too. There's people who think, well, you're only in the WWE because Ronda Rousey. That's not true at all, actually.
Right, no.
No, that's not true at all. And, so she deals with it too, and I can only imagine on the levels she has to deal with it because her best friend is one of the biggest female pay-per-view draws in the world.
Right.
And so I look at it as it's nothing compared to what she's going through. I mean, she's paving her own path, and there's that. So I know, like, she's the Queen of Spades, but there's always that Ronda Rousey question. Right. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it's like that with me. I'm trying to pave my own path, but then there's always that Queen of Spades. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've just accepted it that it's just the way it's gonna be. That's how it is, and I just have to continue working hard. And I just have to continue working hard. Like, that is hard work beats anything. Right. So as long as I continue working hard, boom, it'll work out. Stay loyal and keep family first and keep going. It'll all work out.
And that's the thing. It's like the ultimate goal is to get up to that level, but at the same time, the work that you put in before that level is just as satisfying as that. And I talk from experience because my son is a referee. He's learning. I shouldn't say he's he is a referee, I guess, because he is a
referee. He's
learning, and I respect all you guys in the locker room. for taking him under your guys' wing. I
Yep.
also respect, Mr. and Mrs. the husband and wife,
Yep.
Eugene.
And I
taking
definitely
him under
make
his
sure
wing.
to set aside time to talk to your son. I really do. You can ask him. I
Right.
respect that this is what he's doing, and I'm not gonna hold back anything when it comes to him in this business, because that's the worst thing to do.
And that's the thing that I'm not saying that it's similar, but I've had people like, well, how do you feel with him being out there? It's like, well, that's his. It's not my life. Let him do it. And I know that they have. And I basically say, if I didn't trust anybody to do this, then
He
he
wouldn't be
be
there.
there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have probably told him like the do's and don'ts and stuff. And
Most definitely.
Right. And so that's that I don't have that spot. That's not mine. And that's all you guys. And the only reason why I bring that up is that, people do understand though, you listen to this, you watch this on YouTube, please, be respectful, to anybody. And I know a lot of them won't, but yes,
No,
it's
I'm
excitement
telling
to
you,
know,
man,
but you
most
gotta
won't.
be respectful.
And it's that most won't. I have to be so careful with my friends list, which is something that, like, and she'll tell you, she actually used to get mad at me. I don't like the attention like that. We used to go to, this is a quick thing, you can cut me off, but
You're
her
fine.
and I have this tradition where we would go, I'm not going to say which frying pan because I know someone is going to listen to this and try and figure it out, but we have a tradition where we go to a frying pan. And when she started to get really, really popular, people started to get in the way of our meal.
Right.
And let me
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you the difference between us, between her and I, and what makes her special in this versus me is I would get mad because I'm trying to eat. And if I'm not in character and if I'm not entertaining you right now, I'm just trying to eat, okay?
Right.
I would get mad, like, leave us alone, and Shayna would calm me down, and she would take the time to sign the autographs. She would take the time to help. She would be there for those fans, while me, I'm just like, I'm trying to eat right now. Leave us alone, and she's not like that. She's 100%, look, she's a heel. She is a bad guy, and let me tell you something. She was born to be a bad guy. I mean, I just can never see her being a face ever.
Right.
But outside that ring, she is the sweetest, the most caring person that I've ever known. She's loyal, and she does not forget about those who have been there with her through the ride, through how they say ride or die.
Right. Yep.
That's the way she is. So if you see her in Sioux Falls, she will sign your autographs. She will be there. She will talk to you. She will take that time to communicate with you and listen to you. And that's something that makes her really special. And that's her. That's all her. I mean, that's who she is.
Right.
And it's absolutely amazing because I'm not that way. If I'm working or if I'm somewhere and they're like, "Are you Maru?" I'm like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." I deny it. I'm not like that. And we're just different that way. So that is something I always look. I actually look up to her in that area and admire the fact that she, heel or face, she will take the time to talk to a fan. She will take the time to make sure that those fans know they're the ones making her career, and they're the ones that are paying the bills, and she respects that and gives them the ultimate respect. And it's absolutely I look up to that, and I think that's great.
Right. So did you want to, like, if you have a social media account, if anybody wanted to find it, did
Yep.
you want to let the fans know?
Yep. So I'm on Facebook. I'm Maru the Wrestler. I have shows coming up in Chanhassen. I have a bunch of shows coming up. Unfortunately, I didn't get that ready before the interview right now. But I have shows with, first and foremost, I want to make it clear that RCCW is my home. That's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. RCCW is the place where I take a lot of pride in, and I put a lot of work in there. They are a company that has survived. That 4 year, usually companies fold in
Yep.
under 4
Yep.
years. not them. They made it to 5.
Right.
And these guys are working hard. I got to give it up to Derek Martini. I've got to give it up to Shay. Those guys have turned RCCW, and it is amazing what they've done with it. And I'm honored that Alex Riley took me as this new guy and brought me in years ago, and they've brought me along for the ride. So I do have to give RCCW at this time the respect that they deserve, because that place is my home, and I'll always love them. And regardless of whatever happens, if I get into comedy or whatever it is, whatever happens to me, RCCW will be the place that I will always go back to and I will always honor.
That's awesome. Once again, I'd like to thank you for being on the show and taking time out of your busy schedule, because I do know, not like everybody else knows, but I do know that you have a very, very busy schedule.
Yeah.
For myself, DJ Barbecue, this is Maru, the monster of the Midwest. I thank you for joining us. Everybody, have a good night. Peace!
Hello?